What is up? Welcome to lesson 4. In this lesson, you're going to learn about what to do if small talk scares you. I'm going to share a simple exercise that will help you stop feeling nervous so that you can start small talking with people more easily. The great thing is that this is a mental exercise that you can do in your own mind, and once you test it out for yourself, you'll see that it really helps get rid of a lot of the nervousness that's holding you back from great small talk. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into the main point. Stop comparing yourself. It's a simple concept, but there's a lot of layers, so let's break it down. First of all, let's talk about comparing. Comparing is something everyone does, including me and you. We compare ourselves to people every day, and it's an automatic process that just happens naturally. When we meet someone, we instantly just start comparing ourselves and thinking, am I smarter than him, or is she prettier than me? It happens most of the time without us even realizing it. In fact, on average, we spend 12% of our thoughts every day comparing. You might be thinking, hey, that's not so bad. I mean, comparing builds my confidence when I'm better than someone else. Or, I feel motivated when I compare myself to people who are smarter than me. And yeah, that may be true, and yeah, you may get a short ego boost or feel inspired to improve. But ultimately, in the long run, comparing hurts us. Studies have shown that the more people compare themselves, the more they experience negative emotions, specifically envy and scorn. Envy is when we're not content with what we have and we want what someone else has. We envy people who are quote unquote better than us. Scorn is when we feel like someone is unworthy and we scorn other people who are quote unquote worse than us. I know these are some pretty harsh words, but it's the truth, and it happens to all of us on some level. And the thing is, these emotions end up hurting us the most in the long run. I've seen so many times that people who scorn others a lot end up having low confidence, and people who envy others a lot end up really nervous around cool and powerful people. In both cases, when people compare themselves, they end up hurting themselves the most. Comparing is also linked to other negative things like guilt, regret, defensiveness, lying, blaming others, unmet cravings, and less job satisfaction. Perhaps the most surprising thing is that comparing actually lowers your social success, even more than a low self-esteem. Let me repeat that. Comparing lowers your social success more than having a low self-esteem. Isn't that crazy? So, what is going on here? Comparing creates a wall between you and others. This is because comparing makes you less capable of empathy, which affects your ability to relate with others, which is what we talked about in lesson 3 with the whole social default mode brain. Now, here's a simple example of how comparing creates a wall between you and other people. Imagine you're at a party and you see some people laughing and smiling. If you're comparing, you start asking yourself things like, why aren't I having as much fun as they are? Rather than relating to them, understanding them, and absorbing their positive energy, comparing has turned something positive into a negative thing. Pretty bizarre, right? Here's the bottom line. Comparing divides people, and it hurts your chances of making friends. When you stop comparing, it's easier to approach people and to have conversations. The reason this works is because you shift the focus off of yourself. Studies have shown that focusing on yourself increases nervousness, and that's because you have easier access to your negative thoughts and feelings, and it prevents you from being in the moment and seeing more positive things. You start wondering things like, do I sound awkward, or am I bothering them? And with small talk, learning to shift the focus off of yourself is key, because the less familiar you are with the person and the more trivial the topic, which small talk tends to be, the more likely you are to rate the conversation based on your own performance. In other words, during small talk, we naturally focus on ourselves, and If it goes badly, we tend to blame it on ourselves. So, in order to overcome nervousness with small talk, we have to learn to shift the focus off of ourselves. Okay, now, how do you actually do it? If you've ever had a bad habit, you know it's really hard. The more you tell yourself to not do something, the more you end up doing it. So instead of simply telling yourself to stop comparing, we have to replace it with new behavior. Here's a simple method you can use that I call equalizing, and here's how you do it. Anytime you notice yourself thinking someone is better or worse than you, make up something in your mind that's the opposite. Seriously, make up something. It doesn't even matter if it's true. For example, maybe they look like a slob, but they're incredibly generous. Maybe they're rich, but they're incredibly insecure. The point is, you're balancing out any comparing that you do and conditioning your brain to bounce the other way when you start to feel inferior or superior to other people. You're neutralizing the negative effects of comparing, and at the same time, you're taking the focus off of yourself. All right, it's exercise time. Below this video, there's a link to a step-by-step guide I wrote that walks you through how to stop comparing in more detail. Go download it, test it out for yourself, and let me know what you think in the comments below.